Hi, welcome to Broadway On Demand's Toast to Allegiance, presented by Playbill and Broadway On Demand. I'm Telly Leung. I got to originate the role of Sam Kimura in Allegiance, and for the next 30 minutes, we are going to toast this fabulous show, which I was so proud to be a part of. We're going to bring back some of my co-stars from the show, and also bring back the creators, and also answer a few questions submitted by you, the fans, on social media. Now, I have a drink ready to go. I've named this the Heart Mountain Hooch. It's a little vodka, or a lot of vodka, some ginger ale, a splash of cranberry juice, and because we're in a pandemic, if you like, you can sprinkle a little stir-crazy in there as well. Now, as we count down to the premiere of the pay-per-view event of Allegiance, let's take a look at a preview of this groundbreaking Broadway musical.
December 7th, 1941.
Direct from its Broadway run, the groundbreaking musical. Inspired by George Takei's true life experience, Allegiance, starring Tony Award winner Lea Salonga and George Takei.
All right, here we go. Our very first guest is somebody who I love and I hold very dear and near to my heart. I consider her a sister to me. I first met her when I worked on Flower Drum Song on Broadway, but of course I was a big fan of her from her incredible performance as Kim in Miss Saigon, which won her the Olivier and also the Tony Award. And the little Disney kid in my heart also loves her because she was the voice of Princess Jasmine and Mulan. Please welcome my show sister, Lea Salonga.
Yay! Hi!
Oh my gosh, how are you? Lea, what are you drinking,
Hi,
sis?
everybody. Honestly, it's water in a very, very fancy looking goblet.
You know, she's got to protect those vocal cords. She's
just
drinking water.
Yes, yeah. It's one of those things I have to do. But I've been singing a lot in this, despite this quarantine being what it is. There have been a lot of opportunities for me to get in front of my iPhone and sing for people, which has been quite nice. It's been keeping me sane.
Well, you know, it's interesting. And you're coming in from Manila, right?
That's right. I'm in Manila.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting, you know, as we all deal with the new normal of what this pandemic is. I mean, there's so many people who probably maybe would not have gotten the chance to see you sing because you're in Manila, but because of technology and how amazing it is right now, you get to be beamed into somebody's home via their television or their laptop. And I'm so excited that now Allegiance is getting that opportunity too, that people can watch it as a pay-per-view event, you know, from the comfort of their own home. Hey, Lea, so when I say Allegiance, and of course we have a lot of memories from that show, but what's the first thing that pops into your brain when you think about the show?
I think the first thing that pops into my brain is going to George Takei's house for the very first time to prepare for the very first reading of Allegiance in Los Angeles. I remember the house being so resonant because of the hardwood floors. I remember it being just really, really lovely, and how whatever sound you make just rings throughout the entire house. It's probably the most live room I've ever walked into. And I remember texting my friends, you guys, I'm in Sulu's house. So so that was like one of the most fun memories I have in this entire process. And of course, learning that we got the Longacre Theater and that the show was going to be on Broadway. All the memories of being in Balboa Park in San Diego while we were doing the show and rehearsing the show over there.
You and I worked on Allegiance for, I would say, a good 6 years before it got to Broadway, just developing the show, readings, workshops, taking it out of town. Because I remember making my debut with you when I was one of the kids in Flower Drum Song. And then now, you know, fast forward much later, now I'm watching all of these incredible performers in our cast make their Broadway debuts for the very first time. There's something so special about shows like Allegiance and shows like Flower Drum Song and Miss Saigon that's giving a generation of Asian performers their break. So it was I don't know. I also loved watching the Broadway kids grow up too.
Yeah, and I guess I was one of those Broadway kids when I made my Broadway debut in Miss Saigon. I was only 20 years old, 20 when I did that. And then to see another generation, like in Flower Drum Song, it was maybe about 10 or so years later when I met you. And then another however many years later, we get to meet Momoko, and we get to see Sam and Belinda and Ellie and all of these people making their debuts. And it's like, oh my God, it's nice being a part of so many people's debuts and, you know, their big entrances into this magical world that we love so much.
I also love that we're going to talk to him in a bit, but I mean, the Broadway debut that trumped all Broadway debuts was George Takei making his debut. There's a wonderful tradition that happens, which maybe was captured in the documentary, but you know, there's a ceremony where we put all of the folks that are making their Broadway debuts at the center of the stage, and we sort of all send them love on opening night. And to see George standing in the middle of that circle with all the kids, I thought was so cool. Like he was a big kid making his Broadway debut, and it was really
so sweet. It was just so
really
sweet how in this, you know, he's a huge star. I mean, Sulu, and he was also in, and the both of us got to work in Mulan separately but together. It's funny now when I think about it. So for him to still have these milestones that he gets to experience, that all of us then get to see, it's so much fun.
Now, I know folks want to know, during this crazy time, how are you spending your time? Besides doing virtual concerts and besides, you know.
And fundraising and all that. I learned how to bake souffles in my kitchen. Those things are temperamental, but they're fun. They're fun once you get it. Knitting, crochet, watching a lot of cartoons. It's a great way to escape. And falling asleep to Forensic Files. That's what I do.
I remember you being somebody who liked to knit and crochet backstage all the time.
Right.
You were always somebody who's a knitter.
I learned actually how to knit on Flower Drum Song when we were out in LA. One of our guys over there, Robert Pendelia, who you I think know, he was the one who taught a few of us how to do it. And it stuck with some of us, and it didn't stick with some of us, but it was just a great way to pass the time. And it's a good way to calm down because your hands are so busy and you really have to focus. Next thing you know, however many minutes have passed by, and you have a little gift at the end.
So you heard it here, folks. For all those Broadway fans out there who ever wonder what is happening backstage at a Broadway show, just picture Lea Salonga knitting a sweater.
I haven't
speaking of backstage,
to that yet.
I bet you will. There's quarantine.
Give me a minute. Yes, give me a minute. Yeah, give me a hot second. I will graduate to sweater.
Hey, speaking of backstage, let's take a look at the behind-the-scenes story about making Allegiance from director Greg Vanderveer. This is a trailer from the documentary film Allegiance to Broadway.
What would it take to achieve your Broadway dreams?
We have the Longacre.
Are you serious?
Yes.
How far will one team go
We are ready to begin rehearsals.
to beat all odds?
Cruel truth of trying to succeed on Broadway. You have to sell 1,000 seats a night.
In the pursuit of a legacy.
It's going to be very difficult.
Allegiance to Broadway, the journey of a Broadway musical.
Show them some love. We are full. House is open.
I think it's so great that Greg has given us what a backstage perspective is of making a Broadway show. And so much does go into it. There are the folks that you see on stage, like me and Leia, but there are also the folks that are off stage that you might not ever see had it not been for a documentary like that. I'd like to bring on the authors and the creators of our show. Please welcome to our chat, Mark Aceto, Jay Kuo, and Lorenzo Tioni.
Hey
guys.
Hey. Good to see you, Tel. Hi, Telly.
You all look so dapper.
Yes. I'm wearing one of the original costumes from the Broadway production of Allegiance, which Dan Horn was wearing in With You. I just took it as a souvenir at the end of the show when we closed.
Producer's privilege.
Yes.
I knew that tux looked familiar.
Yes. It's really shining and shimmering. Splendid.
And I'm drinking from a Gammon and Get Drunk Allegiance opening night glass I actually have an entire set, which I stole from the producer's office.
I also, a little backstage story that may or may not have been caught in Greg's documentary, but I kept a bar backstage. It was actually Bar Telly. It sort of became the gathering place. And the Longacre is tight quarters, but somehow we managed to cram every single person into my dressing room for a drink. It was actually inspired by Alan Cumming. Alan Cumming on Cabaret used to have his dressing room he would call Club Cumming. And somebody got him a neon sign that said Club Cumming. And now he actually owns a bar in the East Village called Club Cumming that was based on his Broadway dressing room. So if the acting thing doesn't work out, I think I'm going to open a bar. So I actually there's a great question actually from one of our fans that we got on the internet. This fan, his name is Bob Shuttleworth. And this is a great question for the authors, I think. I first saw Allegiance at its premiere in San Diego at the Old Globe. The powerful ending literally moved me to tears, along with much of the rest of the audience. But when I saw it again in the filmed version, I saw a changed ending. Why? And I would love for our authors to talk about what that process was of, having a show that was in front of an audience 8 times a week for 6 to 7 weeks in San Diego, and then taking the show to Broadway years later and actually changing the ending. What was that process like?
Is he saying that he didn't cry when he saw it on the Broadway version? Is that what,
I think he probably cried both times.
He's not alive, no.
Well, in the San Diego version, the ending was a song called Second Chances. And one of the virtues of Second Chances is that you get a second chance to write a new ending. So we wanted to go a different direction with that and really sort of stay within the themes of the show and musical themes and sort of the through line of the story. It was a far less political show than it had been in San Diego. And so the ending was necessarily different as a result. And I tell you, there were probably 4 different ways we tried that ending between the world premiere and Broadway. But even before the world premiere, there were probably 6 different ways we ended the show. And so how you start and how you end a show is constantly in flux until the day you freeze it in previews. And we actually never even knew until it was frozen what the ending was really going to be.
If you had come during previews in San Diego, you would have seen a very different show. Like, people who died did not die, and such. But also, like Jay said, I think, yes, the finale, the music was slightly different, but the emotional hinge for the show was much less political after we closed the San Diego premiere and we actually brought it to Broadway and made it much more about family and the personal. It was an effective ending, I think.
Yeah, our goal was always to get people to take off their glasses and wipe their eyes with the whole hand. Like, if I didn't see the whole hand and the glasses off, I knew something was wrong. So we just that was our barometer, and
in San Diego,
that was the response. It's a big cry. So
we actually had an audience camera in San Diego that would capture the front row. And as we were making changes, we could see whether we got the first 4 people in the front row to cry or not at the end.
It was a conductor camera for the people backstage, and if Telly and Leah can confirm, but there was a betting pool in San Diego about who amongst the people that were visible in the conductor camera would start crying first at the ending. And they literally all put in $1, and whoever guessed who was going to cry first would take away the pot.
There were all kinds of hijinks going on backstage, which I loved. I don't know, Leah and Telly, how long you were doing the scene between the two of you, the fight scene, but without realizing that 2 of the actors were walking through the exact scene behind stage and mimicking all of your moves. It was hilarious.
I was shown this video, and they are giving you their best RuPaul's Drag Race lip sync.
Oh, yes.
Leah Salonga and Telly Leung doing a climactic scene from Allegiance. It's sort of brilliant, actually. So we'll have to pick up that video somewhere.
The backstage thing that I remember the most was when we went to Broadway and Rumi Amaya joined the cast, and suddenly everyone became obsessed with bubble tea. It was all about bubble tea all the time, and I never tried bubble tea before, so I felt like I had to be part of the gang and try it. And not a fan, I'm sorry to say, of the bubble tea. It was sort of like like a brown crayon stuck in hot water with goobers. I mean, it was just like I don't understand it at all.
Oh my God, I will inhale all of the bubbles at the bottom of that glass.
I know it was an Allegiance tradition, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, it's interesting because Allegiance sometimes can be sort of a serious show and sort of heavy in subject matter at times. I mean, it's sort of epic, but backstage, I've always found that when I'm working on a very serious show on stage, the backstage tomfoolery actually gets sillier and to
it's
counterbalance.
Really stupid, yeah.
We also tried to put that humor on the stage, and that was actually really inspired by George. The idea that these 120,000 people, even though they were under these incredibly dire circumstances, were finding joy. They were hunting for it. They were looking for it. They were hungry for it to be able to have weddings and dances and baseball games. And so George's life force and his own humor gave us permission to be able to find that in the story. And I think that's one of the most inspiring parts, that they were not, the internees were not this group of people who were being depressed while they were being oppressed. They fought against that.
Yeah.
It reminds me sort of, as we all live in this pandemic, it's the same thing. People are making art and making music. I mean, people in Italy out their balconies singing to each other, DJs spinning sets, in Miami for everybody to hear. I mean, it's sort of the same idea that, it's finding the joy even in the most, difficult of situations.
Allegiance absolutely changed my life in terms of the way I look at adversity, because I just think, okay, if the government is not showing up at my door and putting me in a prison camp, then today's a good day. Today is okay. And that's become my baseline for really how I handle adversity.
For all of our authors and our creators, this is also your Broadway debut as writers on the show. How does it feel now? I mean, the show ran on Broadway, but how does it feel now to have the show preserved forever and ever for audiences for generations to come? I mean, it's incredible.
Hey, I mean, we could not be more proud both of the show and of the fact that we found every possible way to make sure that people who would have wanted to see it on Broadway got a chance to see it. And it was so much about getting it to the wider possible audience we could make it to be. And if it was another production in Los Angeles that George got to do, or people doing productions all over the world, there was also the possibility that people could see the original Broadway production preserved on film. We really kind of didn't know when we first filmed whether or not this would have ever been a thing and if we would have found a way to actually distribute it. But I knew that I wasn't ready for those amazing people in that amazing place to be gone forever. I wasn't prepared for that. And so we decided to preserve it and to shoot it. And it made its debut in movie theaters where so many people got a chance to see it. And now you can actually see it for the next 10 days here on Broadway On Demand. And we hope that this streaming opportunity will bring even more audiences who would not otherwise have had a chance to see the film to see Allegiance. And I would just want to say one thing. The documentary, as you said, it's also on Broadway On Demand.
I love that documentary because I feel like so many Broadway fans actually have no idea, first of all, the amount of time that it takes to get an original Broadway musical, not based on a pre-existing work, not based on a book, not based on a movie, but getting that show to Broadway, if it goes to Broadway, I think is it's fascinating to watch that journey and also fascinating to there's so many conversations in this documentary that even though I was a part of the show, that I wasn't privy to, that you guys, plotting away in conference rooms and backstage and all of that. It's really cool. So definitely go check that out on Broadway On Demand as well. Now I have to bring one more guest with us to this amazing panel of folks, and none of us would be here without this next very special guests. Please welcome to our panel the co-creator of Allegiance and also the star of our show and the reason why we're all here, the incredible George Takei.
Yay! Hi, George.
Hello, all. It's so good to virtually see you all. But, I've got to say, I am so thrilled. I think of the very first reading that we had at the Japanese American National Museum, an institution that we built to institutionalize the story of the internment. And it's despite the pandemic, it's thriving. We just had a fundraiser, our annual gala, virtually, where I toasted the achievement of this museum. And that's where the first reading of this incredible musical was done. And all the way through all the iterations to this now, where technology is all bringing us together again. It has been an absolutely thrilling journey. We were first incarcerated in the swamps of Arkansas, and right beyond the barbed wire fence was the bayou. And for this Southern Californian kid, it was amazing. Trees grew out of the water, and their roots snaked in and out. And my father sneaked out beyond the barbed wire fence and cut off one of those roots, brought it in, boiled it in used a tank, and peeled the barks off. And it was a beautiful piece of Mother Nature's sculpture, which I have in my home here. And here we are, technologically coming together and ensuring that the story and the personalized, humanized story is continuing on. I can't tell you what a joy it is for me to be at this point.
Hey, George, for from our friends out there who are watching this, who might not have seen Allegiance, I learned so much doing this show from you, and doing this and developing this show with you for 6 years. There's a word that is very Japanese that I'd never heard of before, and it's that I would love for you to talk about this word gaman, which I think might be useful for our times now with everything that we're living through. But what does that necessarily mean? There's no real English direct translation for it.
It's a lot of things. I think the closest word is fortitude or resilience, but with dignity, maintaining. Know yourself, know what you're made of, but at the same time, in order to survive, you've got to see the reason why we survive, to have loved ones there and make sure you keep them safe, and to be able to enjoy the surrounding that you're in, and to create your own joy.
Hey, there's a great fan question here, and actually, it's a question I've had as well. Anna Latos would like to know, what made you choose Heart Mountain as the setting out of all the other camps? And she would also like you to know that her grandpa and her family were interned there.
Well, my family was interned first at Santa Anita Racetrack, and then the swamps of Arkansas, and then Tule Lake, which is the most notorious of all the camps, and symbolically also the cruelest. 18,000 people, when all the other camps were anywhere from 6,000 to about 11 or 12,000.
When you're writing a musical, you've got sort of a sweeping, epic, romantic feel about it. You look at this name like Heart Mountain, and then I immediately thought, I want to know more about this place. And it turned out that was the place where the resistance to the draft began. And it made for a wonderful background and sort of a setting for the tension that evolved. And we were able to tell the story of the two sides of patriotism, that existed side by side in a single camp.
That was the camp that had the strongest resistance. And the resistors were those that were eventually taken from a barbed wire prison camp to a federal penitentiary. But the older ones, like my parents, who answered no to the loyalty questionnaire, were transferred to the most notorious one, Tule Lake.
One of the best memories I have over the past few years actually was going with you, George, and with Lorenzo to the actual Heart Mountain.
Yes.
And standing in the shadow of that mountain in the restored barracks there and just feeling the energy of that place that we had sort of inhabited musically in that story for so long.
Hey, gang. So I know Leia's drinking water, but boys, what are you drinking? George, what are you drinking?
I, like Leia, am drinking the fizzy water that's lost the fizz because we've been here so long.
I'm drinking a bubbly rosé.
Campari and soda.
Yeah, I've got the gammon and get drunk.
We actually have a special treat for you. All of our brothers and sisters and all of our Allegiance family from around the world are going to be raising a glass in celebration of this wonderful achievement. Check it out.
Hi everyone! I'm very happy and excited that we are on Broadway On Demand. Cheers!
Hi everyone! I'm so excited that Allegiance is making its premiere on Broadway On Demand.
Konnichiwa! Hi everyone! I'm so excited to see Allegiance on Broadway On Demand.
I couldn't be more excited for the premiere of our show on Broadway On Demand.
Hi, happy opening. Cheers! Hi everybody, I am so excited for tonight and I want to say cheers to everyone and big congrats to Allegiance for being on Broadway On Demand. We are so excited to share our work with all of you and we really, really, really hope you enjoy it.
Congratulations to Allegiance for being on Broadway On Demand.
Hi everybody and welcome to the premiere of Allegiance on Broadway On Demand.
I just wanted to say happy opening to Allegiance on Broadway On Demand.
I'm really excited about Allegiance being on Broadway On Demand. So congratulations and cheers everybody.
Bye and cheers!
Cheers.
Cheers everybody.
Cheers.
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 Oh, cheers. It was so wonderful seeing all of our friends again. How wonderful is that?
Awesome.
Oh my gosh. Hey, before we say goodbye, Lorenzo, you actually have a special announcement for everybody that's watching this right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all dressed up like this because we kind of wanted it to make it like our opening night. It's the first time, it's the first showing of Allegiance on Broadway On Demand. And besides this little get together for all of us, which was as much fun for us as we hope it was for you, we actually made it something else special. There's actually not just a film, you'll get to see some never seen before footage at the end of the film. So stay on after the credit, wait for the credits to come by and then watch the extra footage. But not only this, if you watch it right now on Broadway On Demand right after this, then you'll get a digital download of our original Broadway cast recording. So the beautiful voices of Telly and Leia and all of our wonderful cast will be also yours to keep.
Awesome. Hey, you guys, that does it for us and this very special toast to Allegiance. I want to thank my show sister, Leia Salonga. I want to thank our incredible creators, Mark Aceto, Lorenzo Tioni, Jay Quo, and of course, the reason why we're all here, my friend, my idol, George Takei. And I say, let's raise a glass one more time and toast the entire cast and crew of Allegiance. To learn more about Allegiance, you can go to allegiancemusical.com. On behalf of Playbill and Broadway On Demand and all of us here at Allegiance, I just want to thank you all for being here. And we hope you join us for the premiere of Allegiance the Musical coming up next. Cheers and gammon!
Gammon!
Gammon!